Spiral dynamics, turquoise, coral, and then again turquoise. Hello, this is Shores of Infinity, Chris speaking about a phenomenon in spiral dynamics which is going back and forth between colors. 2 or 3 colors. As you know, it's called spiral dynamics because it's a spiral. It's not a linear or exponential upwards curve. It's a spiral with repeating themes on different levels of depth. And one very common occurrence is to go back and forth between turquoise and coral. The same you can also say about yellow and turquoise, or coral and teal. But today I want to talk mostly about turquoise and coral. Not only do you have these 3 subdivisions, or at least 3 subdivisions of entering, peak and exiting colors, where they already flow into each other, the 2 colors next to each other. You also have on every coil of the spiral little sub-spirals that can catapult you back and forth between 2 or 3 colors, like a ball in a pinball machine or on a pool table. I've been observing the processes of spiral dynamics for more than 20 years, and myself and others, and discussing it with many very interesting and experienced people, and this is what I came up with. The faster you go through a color, the more unstable the next color will be, and you're more likely to fall back at some point to a previous color, usually within the same tier. And once you're in second tier, once you have reached yellow, it's extremely unlikely that you fall back into green. Although from yellow to green it's still possible, but not from turquoise to green. Now, so once you're in turquoise, you're likely to stay in second tier. Otherwise, until green, you can go back and forth any of those 6 colors, all the way back to beige, when your existence is threatened, as we have seen in the last 2 years. You can see the colors a little bit like base camps on a high mountain expedition like Mount Everest. So the previous colors are always the base camps, to which you can return if it's too hard to progress any further upwards. If turquoise becomes too weird, you go back to yellow and look for more information. If coral becomes too weird because it's too exhausting and too frightening, you go back to turquoise because it's more peaceful. If teal and aubergine and so on become too weird because you feel all alone in the universe, you go back to coral or turquoise because it's less threatening, feels less threatening to your sense of I-ness. Looking back now, to give an example, my 6 years in India, which felt like 30 years, they really did. I went now in retrospect very fast from green to aubergine. It was of course much too fast. 6 years is much too fast. So it was not stable and I couldn't maintain teal and aubergine for a long time and went back to coral. As long as I wasn't challenged, as I wasn't disturbed, it was easy peasy to stay in teal or aubergine. But as soon as there was a normal day-to-day life challenge, in this case work, a difficult job, I accepted it, catapulted me back to coral, and then I kind of gave up spirituality for some time. Which is also something that can happen in coral, that you just fed up and say to hell with all of this. And I ended up back in yellow. Then I spent about 5 years in yellow and about 5 years in turquoise until I got back to coral. Then I stayed for some time in coral, and for the last few years I'm going back and forth between teal and coral, depending on the circumstances. Because my teal is not stable, because my coral is incomplete. Unfortunately. I hate being in coral, centered in coral. It's exhausting, but it takes a while until all of the rubbish is cleaned out. And with rubbish, I mean identifications. But I also had a time where I was vacillating back and forth between coral and turquoise. And I have realized in conversations, and many conversations I had with you who listen to my videos and whom I know from Patreon and other social media contact forums, that this is what is happening with many of you, going back and forth between turquoise and coral. And firstly, I want to say this is okay. Don't worry. Because coral is exhausting and sometimes you just need a reprieve, you just need a break, then it's okay to go into turquoise. Or even into yellow. If you're a very mental, analytical, intellectual person, then it can be a holiday, so to say, from coral to go back into yellow. It's fine. It's not a step back, it's just taking a break for a while. That doesn't mean that you fell out of anything. It just means your system needs a break. That's it. You can go back into coral anytime. Actually, to get into coral is very easy. To stay in coral and to go through coral, that's the difficult thing. But to enter coral, the doors are wide open. All you need to do is realize that you are not your thoughts, and you are not your emotions, and you are not your body. These are all habits, concentrations, focuses. It is not that you are not your thoughts, emotions, and body at all, but as soon as you identify with any thought, emotion, or body part, like your head or whatever, the trouble starts. To be centered in first tier is like living in the basement all the time, to never see the light. Yellow is like exploring ground floor, and turquoise is exploring the first floor or second floor, however you count your floors. The upper room, as they call it in New Age lingo nowadays. But coral is to explore the whole house and to clean it, to clean house. No more secrets, no more skeletons in the closet, no more dust swept below the rugs. No. Once you have explored the whole bloody house and it's squeaky clean, only then are you allowed to go and stay in teal. And this is why Ken Wilber, who is probably still the number one authority on spiral dynamics, has divided the 6 colors of second tier and second and third tier. For him, third tier starts in coral already with indigo. So the second tier is only yellow and turquoise, and the third tier is indigo, violet, ultraviolet, and clear light. And I know why, because coral is so very different. So it feels like a new tier, or maybe violet. Somewhere between coral and violet, there is a major transformation. similar to the jump from green to yellow. I still think it's all second tier, but I can understand very well how you can make a whole new tier out of the later colors. And one of the most frequent questions I get asked is, why is there this horrible coral in between? In between these wonderful harmonious colors like turquoise and teal, why is there coral in between? Doesn't fit somehow. Well, first of all, coral is the second tier red. Red also doesn't fit somehow into first tier, but it's a very important discovery by Claire Graves and co. that there's such a strange color in there, such an aggressive color. Secondly, in teal, aubergine and plum, or violet, ultraviolet and clear light, the last three colors of the second tier, or in Ken Wilber terms, the third tier, you have access to CDs. And in order not to misuse them, you have to go through a cleansing process. And thirdly, in ancient cultures, or also still existing natural cultures, you have rites of passage, initiation rites, and they are missing in our culture. So, in your youth, which is partly red, the rite of passage is missing. And then later in your spiritual progress, the rite of passage through coral is also missing. There's nothing in our culture which can provide that, or even wants to provide it. So that is why in our culture red is so predominant, because some people got stuck in it, and coral is so difficult and traumatic because there's nothing in our culture which helps us through it. And it's much easier to go through coral with help. The help I had in India, for example, back then, many years ago, or the help I have now because I have found many others who are centered in coral or have gone through coral, with whom I can exchange experiences. And this is also one of the main reasons for the existence of this channel and the Patreon group and the Facebook group, which is for people who are centered in turquoise or coral or teal, to exchange experiences, not to exchange opinions or thoughts, but experiences. What am I going through right now, and how the fuck can I get out of it? How can I get unstuck? Coral are the shores, and the vast landscape beyond these shores of infinity are infinite and wonderful. But first, you have to do a little bit of a survival camp. You have to prove that you can survive at the shores of infinity before you're admitted inland. And there's no way back. Yes, there's a way back sometimes, as I said, to get a break and take a break. You go back for a few weeks or months into turquoise or yellow, but actually there's no way back. Once you have been centered in coral for some time, anything else will be completely meaningless. You know, you have to clean up your shit. That's your main job. And only then your deeper path will be revealed. In teal onwards or violet onwards, you will see more and more what is your path that you have to go towards the reunification with the divine. But in coral, you have to rediscover all the tricks of Maya. And you will see this is an illusion, and this is an illusion, and this is an illusion, and this is an illusion. And even what you thought was the highest truth in turquoise or yellow is also an illusion. So in my view and experience, it's completely normal to go back and forth between two colors. Be it yellow and turquoise, or turquoise and coral, or coral and teal, until it becomes more and more stable. And the longer you stay in one color, the more stable the next color will be. Also, both turquoise and coral, you need to develop two things that are very important later on. First, courage, and second, intuition. Now, for me, turquoise and coral are mostly about courage and intuition. And these you will need in teal or violet onwards, because it's very, very open out there. Yeah, I said that from beige to coral, it's about exploring the house of yourself. From teal onwards or violet onwards, you exit the house and explore the world outside. And that can be super scary. And the only two things that can help you there are courage and intuition. Also honesty. And all this is only possible with the cleansing processes of coral. Turquoise is a very passive color. Coral is a very active color. And also yellow and coral are very individual colors. And turquoise is a very community color. So it might be that you go through turquoise without even noticing it much. It just feels good. But you need this experience of intuition and this experience of community, of other people being out there who are similar, to move on to coral. So it's not a good idea to move on too fast, but anyway, it happens usually without you doing. It's not something you can decide that you are staying in one color longer so that you can explore it further. It usually happens if you want it or not, and suddenly you're on the next color. But what is possible is if coral is getting too much, too exhausting, you can decide to go back to turquoise and explore this a little further. So I hope this was helpful to you. I hope this was practical for you. For many people, spell dynamics always sound very abstract and theoretical. For me, it's pure practice, because I can see daily how helpful it is to have a little bit of a map out there. And remember, it's a spiral. It's not linear. So there's no real stepping forwards or backwards or upwards or downwards. It's moving along the coils of a spiral. Many, many, many coils. And coils within coils. Okay, thank you to all my patrons. Thank you for joining me as a patron. Thank you for liking and subscribing and sharing the videos with your friends. See you soon.